Hey viewers, this is Frank Perrin from Bayt al Asad, and today we're here at the Worcester Art Museum to talk a little bit about some of the collections that have just been put up at the new Higgins Gallery opening. We're going to show some of our Middle Eastern arms and armor demonstrations that we have outside, along with some of the collections that I helped kind of recurate and reinterpret for the opening of the gallery. What I'm wearing right now is more representative of what would have been an Iranian heavy cavalryman, so horseback warrior from northwest Iran. All right, the helmet on the left here is more of a traditional Iranian helmet. I can talk about it in detail afterwards. This is a style of face mask helmet that popped up with the Cuban Kipchaks, Turkish and Russian steppe nomadic warriors who wore this. What I wanted to educate people on a little bit with this is kind of the evolution of curved swords from the region. Okay, so when most people think about swords in the Middle East, we hear that word, what's the famous word? What's the sword? It starts with S? Scimitar. No, but we actually don't use the word scimitar because scimitars aren't real. All right, so scimitar is a linguistic misnomer. People couldn't pronounce the word shamshir. And over time, it became scimitar. And because they couldn't really distinctualize swords from different cultures, every single sword, every culture in the Middle East became called a scimitar. So every culture should be given the respect it deserves with its own sword name. In Iran, you have the shamshir. In Turkey, you have the kilij. In India, you have the talwar. So they each have their own respective names. So on front of me right here, I have a kind of a layout evolution of the different ways the sword manifested itself in Iran. So at first, sabers in like the 9th and 10th century were not highly curved, all right? They had this very, very slight curvature, still good to be used on horseback, likely more introduced by steppe nomadic peoples. Iranian and Persian swords were straight at this time, but they started to adopt more of a curve earlier in time. Then they grew on by like the 1380s to look like this. Shamshirs look like this. They had this tip at the end called the yalman. More of a Turkish thing that got brought in, but it was good because you could make your cup heavier, right, with a wider tip. Also, more easily able to access open spots in the armor because it was a little bit larger. The spots were bigger from what someone's wearing. Right? Then, by the 15th and 16th century, Iranian swords left out that tip and they got to a taper, like this. And this is that classical shamshir you've probably seen. You will see a couple of them in the exhibit. At this point, Persian armor began to become more covered, more plate, harder to get into the gaps, right? So they had to bring their swords to a taper. And that's kind of how these weapons and armor evolved over time. So, if anyone asks, it's wild. This is a shamshir, this is also a shamshir, and this is also a shamshir, because the Iranian Persian word for sword is just shamshir. So that's a quick little rundown of that. I can leave you to your own devices to check out any of the other weapons and armor we have we have on this table over here. We have some more stuff from India as well. And the table will be manned by my very, very competent counterparts here. And we answer all the questions you might have. So please feel free to touch things, except for this, it's sharp.
But I'll show you those. Over here, the primary thing, I think the most important and interesting thing is the shield. Now this one, the straps are pretty loose because it's meant to be held by a hand with a lot of padding and a lot of protection to it. So it's a little loose, but pick it up, left or right-handed, use it in your offhand generally. Anybody wants to check out this one? Same?
No.
No? Okay. There you go. Now these swords are combination of examples. This is a fairly early, you say 9th century Moroccan sword. It looks just very much like a European knightly sword. Anyone who wants to check that out. These are heavier and tougher than the period examples would have been because we actually practice with them, as you can see by the dents on the shields. Shields are called separ. This is a 9th century blade on a later period curved hilt, if anybody wants to check that out.
A lot of the times when families would maintain family heirlooms, right, so they would have these old blades, but if their hilts got damaged or the wood rotted away or anything else like that, they would bring their old blades to armorers and say, just please remount my family's blade.
Buy a new sword in this economy?
Yeah.